Welcome to Front Range Facts. This is Anthony Meisner.
And this is Jim Merrion.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to get right into the national trends of the real estate market here for October of 2020.
Yeah, Anthony, I wanted to highlight a few things. We've seen obviously the weirdest year in memory with real estate, and every month there's just kind of new amazements that occur. And so some of the existing trends recently are existing home sales. They've been going up for the last 3 months since we kind of had that snap back from the shutdown. But that has really essentially soared to a 14-year high in August. So we're up 10.5% year over year. And new construction is also seeing some, pretty good increases, and the home prices are soaring too. And we're going to obviously get into that in more detail in Colorado when we cover that in a little bit. But just from a national perspective, they've seen the highest appreciation over a 2-month period between May and July. It increased 2% nationally in 30 years of record keeping, which, when you think about all the dense cities where you have condos and people aren't as excited to live there, moving out to the suburbs, it's interesting to still see that 2% appreciation nationally. And it's also, showing in the fact that mortgage applications are up 22% above last year. And we've all been hearing about how crazy the refi business is. I know land title has been swamped with handling refis, and all the lenders have been, working, 3,000-hour weeks just to get all those processed. And so 122% increase. It's a good time to be a lender for sure. But, it's also had an impact, of course, on our inventory levels, because nationally inventory is down 38% year over year, which is a huge drop.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to see that. And we'll get into Colorado a little later, but Colorado is even more extreme than the national market.
Yes, it always is. It always is.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, and NAR, the National Association of Realtors, found that the median home price in August was $310,000, which is up 11.4% from last August. So on a national basis, to see a price jump like that, while housing is the shelter everyone's running towards in this pandemic. So note to self, next time there's a pandemic, make sure you're ready to buy before it hits.
Right. So when you're around in like 100+ years and the next one comes around.
So, new construction listings have dropped by about a third year over year in August, according to a Redfin analysis. So there just is not enough new construction being built to keep up with this demand. And homes are selling 13 days faster than they were in the first week of October 2019, which again, it's usually measured in, 1-day increments. To see a 13-day jump like this is nuts. And ever since the coronavirus impact has kind of started, Realtor.com had created this proprietary index of the housing market recovery index. And, we've seen it, be at like 101%, 102%, gradually, reaching up, but it's really jumped now to 110.4%, which means that, the market today is 10.4 points stronger than it was before the shutdowns occurred in mid-March.
Well, the other thing I'd like to talk about is showing time and all the difference in the showing indexes by region. I think that it's pretty indicative that the Northeast region is, at 73.7%, probably above the rest, but they did start their pandemic a little earlier than everywhere else in the nation. Jim, what else is really important about this that we need to take a look at?
Well, again, we always talk about this as being about a 90-day lead indicator for sales activity. So, the activity we're seeing today, is reflected 90 days later. And this is the most, even though today is October 14th, showing time, only has till the end of August. They've revealed right now with their data. But essentially it shows that the fall is going to continue to be extremely strong, because we're seeing still in the Western region a 55% increase in showing activity based upon over last year's number. And just nationally to see a 62% increase is very strong. So we've seen record August, record September activity. October is, seeing a slight dip as far as things go, but it's still way ahead of, activity for normally this time of year. So I think we're going to continue to see a really solid fall.
Yeah, 50% increase. I mean, these are numbers we've never seen before. So
yeah,
it's pretty amazing to watch that. Don't forget, you can always reach out to us. I'm Anthony Meisner. I work for Land Title Guarantee Company here in Colorado. Reach out to me by cell phone or email. My cell number is 303-968-9868, or my email is ameisner, Meisner, at ltgc.com.
And I'm Jim Merrion. I'm Realtor here at Coldwell Banker in Boulder, Colorado. Feel free to shoot me an email at jim@ourcoloradohomes.com or give me a call at 303-548-0243. And don't forget, you can always check out our other podcast, Get Real with Blockchain, which is available on iTunes, Spotify, things like that. And you can always shoot an email to Anthony and I at frontrangefacts@gmail.com.
And don't forget the format of our podcasts in case you're just trying to plug in for a certain marketplace. We always start with the national info we give you first. We'll break it down into Colorado, and then we'll go through all of the submarkets right here in Colorado on the Front Range. So hang in there with us, and we'll get to your section soon.
So, let's cover Colorado since you just forgot where you live for a second there, Anthony. So the average sale price of a single family home in Metro Denver has passed $600,000 for the first time in August, which is a 10% increase over last year. And the average price in Denver proper is actually now at $650,000, which for people coming from Kentucky and Tennessee is quite the sticker shock.
Average at 310.
So our region has basically shown almost a 30% increase in homes under contract from a year ago, and while we have seen a 9.3% decrease from August, it is showing the market's beginning to cool a little bit, but we were burning hot on fire, so a little bit of that is okay with everybody, I think. Our inventory of active listings, we talked about nationally how it's down 38%. Well, again, Colorado is kind of crazy, and it's at 54% across the entire state. So we had, 9,804 homes statewide compared to a year ago. And the median sale price for the whole state was $450,000 in September, a 12% increase from a year ago. And again, Anthony, I think you made a good point just now of saying, nationally, it's like $310,000. So statewide, even in the boonies of Colorado, the average sale price is $450 now. So
yeah,
quite a leap.
50% increase over the average there is pretty crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we had just statewide, we had just over 10,000 homes under contract at the end of September, according to the Colorado Association of Realtors, which is a 35% jump from the same time last year, which, I think really goes to show that delayed nature of the spring market, since nobody could really go in and buy in March and April. Obviously, now we've backloaded it to the fall, months, which we kind of predicted once we started to recover from the market.
Yeah, the one thing that none of us would have ever predicted was the fact that there's only 9,800 homes on the market and over 10,000 went under contract in a single month. The fact that they're turning over faster than every month is pretty insane.
Yeah, we may run out of homes.
Yeah, the builders can't build that fast. This is a really interesting one from Showing Time that we look at too. And this shows that just in Colorado, it's basically a 7-day moving average of last year versus this year. And you can really just see the incredible demand that we've had post-COVID, the big old valley that was there when they shut down showings, and it was very difficult to do anything in the real estate market. And then we've trended, somewhere around 15 to 20% every week over where we were a year ago, just in showing traffic. And I do truly think that people are being much more cautious about what they're going to see. So they're seeing less homes, but there also are more showings available, right? Or there are more showings being had than there were in years past.
Well, and like every listing I've put on the market, since the shutdown began too, has had a 3D tour. I use a company called Matterport, but there's 100 other companies out there that do these things, and so I think that's really helping people be judicious about which homes they see in person, and rightly so. A lot of these homes are occupied. We don't want people going into them unless they absolutely have to. So it's kind of remarkable though that it's still up so much when so many agents are using these 3D tours to help sift out the ones that people may not want to see.
Yeah, let's hope that becomes the new standard, because it definitely helps people manage their expectations better and understand what they're looking for.
Yeah. So what about statewide, Anthony? What do you think some of the big takeaways are for just looking at the data?
Yeah, here's one of the biggest things. We're looking statewide at inventory from last year to this year, and if you look at just September, statewide new listings that are coming on the market are still up. I think that's a pretty big takeaway. The takeaway being that you can actually get a listing out there. You can go sell your house right now if you want to. And a lot of times people are a little more gun shy in the fall. even, kids are back in school. You've got a lot of stuff going on. The other thing is we talked about that pending number, 36% above where it was this time last year. Just the amount of under contracts that have gone up. We're almost 10% over the total number of under contracts we had year to date last year. And the solds, same thing. Who would have ever thought we'd dig out of that crazy hole we had during COVID? And we're now 4% over that. And we're just going to continue to see that number increase all the way through the end of the year at this point.
Yeah,
So
this has got to be the most on fire fall we've ever had.
yeah. And then we definitely can't walk away from looking at that average sales price number, 26.6% above where we were in September of last year. I mean, I don't even know where to start there. That number is ridiculous. This is definitely one of those years that will go down in history. 10% as a state as a whole for year to date average sales price increase is a pretty big deal. But that year over year stat is just mind blowing. I've never seen a number that high.
No, it's a huge leap.
Right. And then that active inventory number, just to really put this in perspective, this time last year, 21,500 active listings in Colorado, and we're less than 10,000 now. So that's that 55% decrease. If 55% doesn't seem like a strong enough number, the fact that we're down 11,000 active listings on the market, I mean, that's a pretty tangible number you can wrap your head around.
Well, and we always talk about month supply of inventory, and how we define that is if you look at every home currently on the market, and if you locked that out so that no new homes come on the market, how long would it take to sell everything on the market? And right now statewide, we're at 1.3 months, whereas this time last year we were at 3 months. So it's a 57% decrease basically in month supply of inventory, which is obviously part of that inventory of active listing, huge drop we've seen, and makes it extremely hard to be a buyer in this market. Sellers have all the control.
Absolutely. Even if we look over to the townhouse market, which is this one you have in front of you, townhouses, even though they may be less desirable during COVID than a single family home, it just goes to show you how much people are putting value in home ownership, right? Because these numbers are still trending. Look at sold listings, 1.7% above where we were a year ago. You're probably better off owning your condo or townhouse than you are renting one. So people are still just pushing. Cost of money is cheap too. We don't talk about a ton of what interest rates are doing on the podcast, but those are also dramatically affecting the market because it's so much cheaper to buy and get into these marketplaces. But, it may not be as extreme as the detached markets, but even that, look at those month supply of inventory of 1.8 months, 42% below where it was a year ago.
Well, I mean, and Anthony, you're just talking about, affordability of, rent versus buy. And just look at the fact that, either way, whether you look at median sale price or average sale price, you're up 6 to 10%, on that. So
right.
Literally, if you bought a condo, or a townhome last year and you needed to sell it this year, you're still going to break even, with all the sale costs involved, and, maybe make a few bucks at the same time. Whereas you're throwing money out the window every month with the, rent.
Exactly. And then that's in 1 year, right? And most people don't own their home for 1 year, but they're like, man, what if I want to move next year?
Yeah.
You look at stuff like this, it justifies pretty quickly buying a house when you pay less per month to purchase that property than you would in rent, and you're going to make money at the end, right?
Yes. Results may not be duplicated in other states, little caveat there.
The front range, right? Special place. Well, don't forget, if you want to do another shameless plug, I'm Anthony Meisner with Land Title. You can get me on my cell phone anytime at 303-968-9868.
And I'm Jim Merrion. Feel free to give me a call at 303-548-0243. And you can always shoot me an email, jim@ourcoloradohomes.com, or you can shoot one to both of us at frontrangefacts@gmail.com.
Don't forget, we're going to jump into the local markets now. Let's take a look at the Denver metro area and just how much more extreme Denver metro is even in the state.
And Anthony, before we do that, we were talking about the exceptionality of Colorado. Did you see U.S. News and World Reports just released their list of top places to live for 2021? And Boulder was number 1, Denver was number 2, and we had 2 other places in the top 5. So 4 out of top 5 of Colorado. I think it was Fort Collins and Colorado Springs. I think we're both there. So
yeah. It's a good time to be here in Colorado. There's no doubt. I was actually looking at some tourism info the other day, and Denver was like in the top 10 places to visit right now too.
Oh, no, we don't need that.
Crazy, just crazy.
So, as far as just, Denver Metro, our pending transactions are up 22.3% year over year, which again, it's that late year, market effect that we've been seeing due to the COVID shutdown. And days in MLS are at 23 days, which is actually, I think, 10 days lower than it was at this time last year, which we usually measure this in 1 day increments when we talk about this. So to see a 10-day drop in days in MLS just shows that it's a voracious market.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when everyone's saying, their house is gone in a flash, or they put it on the market on a Thursday and it went under contract on Friday. Like, there's a reason why, right? We're seeing just such a shortage. It's pretty amazing how competitive things are. Now, that may not be the case for every house, because 23 days is still about 3 weeks, but that's including the luxury market and everything combined. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. And in considering there's like 18 months of inventory on 3 million plus dollar homes, to then average it out to be only 23 days with everything else. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second, but even the luxury market is on fire. So Adams County, another one that was definitely worth talking about. It's the most reasonable place to live in the metro area. About $150,000 cheaper for a detached home and $80,000 cheaper for an attached home than the rest of the metro area. Now, Adams County, as many of you probably know, goes all the way from about Brighton down to Castle Rock or down to Parker. So Adams County is a really large county, but is definitely the eastern side of the metro area. And it's pretty interesting to see that.
Yeah, no, it's there's a lot of newer construction that's aimed for a lower price point, which is helping that. They're doing wee cottages, like kind of 1,000 or less square feet type of homes, as well as putting in just crawl spaces versus basements to keep costs lower and some of that stuff. So it's been helpful for the first time home buyer.
Absolutely. And I think that's a trend we're going to continue to see. Plus, with land prices as cheap as they are in Adams County, that's probably why you're seeing a lot of that development take place out there. Even around the airport and stuff, it's much cheaper than it used to be, just to get in and buy some of those products. Builders are finally getting a little bit smarter about the product type they're building, right? So we don't outbuild what the capacity is, like we were there for a while in that 700, 800,000 range. So you're starting to see some of those come in. The other thing that has always been pretty interesting to me here is just the fact that we were talking about a little earlier, those year-to-date comparisons from last year, we're actually up in total sales, and then we've completely dug ourselves out of this valley that we had during COVID, where we were, the market in those months was 50% below where we had been in the past, year over year. So it's great to see that year-to-date totals are coming out of that we're actually stronger than where we've been in the past, and that residential real estate is really propping up the economy in many cases in a lot of marketplaces, especially the metro area.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well,
So we've got
this RE Colorado piece that you pulled up. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, RE Colorado is the Denver Metro MLS, our realtor database for the metro area. And so, this monthly report they did, I was blown away, in some ways by it. First off, it's easy to understand graphics, but, you can see that in 2019, in September, there was 9 weeks of inventory, and it's dropped all the way down to 4 weeks of inventory, basically here. So to see a 5-week shift year over year, it doesn't happen typically. So that was pretty eye-opening. And then the number of homes closed, I think we all knew going into the summer that we would see kind of a prolonged summer market bleed into the fall. So I'm not too surprised that September 20 numbers are higher than September 19, but I am surprised by just how high of a shift it was, a 26% increase. That's sizable.
Yeah. The other one that really caught me off guard is the average closed price for single family homes. They saw almost double the increase that they usually do, right? Normally we're averaging somewhere around 6% in our marketplace for appreciation, 12% increase in the last year in homes.
I think if you look at 1990 to today, it's more like a 5.6% or so increase on average per year. So yeah, for 12%. Wow.
Congratulations, all you homeowners out there, because you made it.
But that's not too surprising in Colorado, because we typically have these like staircase, hockey stick years, right? Then there's the flatter years, And so this is a hockey stick year for sure. It's one of those big jumps, and it continues to make Colorado exceptional.
It absolutely does. The one thing that everyone's feeling all the pressure in the real estate market right now, this green line in front of you, if you're tuning in on YouTube rather than over the air, is that it would be our active inventory levels. And when you see those active inventory levels substantially lower than the under contract and sold levels, that really is when buyers are feeling a lot of pressure, right? You stick homes on the market, they're bound to sell. Active inventory is down 46% in the metro area. If you look at everything, average sold prices are up 10%. And that's all just relationship to the amount of competition in the marketplace, right?
Mhm.
The fact that they can still get 26% more products sold, and we have almost half the inventory we've had in the past, means people are working real hard to get stuff done right now. This is not an easy marketplace to be in if you're representing buyers. If you have listings on the market, active multiple offers all the time right now is kind of what we're seeing. So it is interesting to see, but just compared to last year, the market conditions are completely upside down. The one thing here that is kind of interesting, this is when we look at that month supply of inventory we were talking about. The metro area is below 1 month of inventory, right? And that's down 48% from a year ago. Usually inventory levels right now are pretty high. And just this year with COVID and everything else that's happened and consumer changes, it's pretty amazing to see that. And still in September, another 12% decrease in inventory from August. And it just doesn't look like there's a lot of end in sight for our issues that we're struggling with right now.
No, no, and if you just look even at just this chart, I mean, it goes back longer than this, but typically we're at usually a high water mark for inventory, this time of year.
Yeah, September,
So
October, always that.
September is usually the time where all the people who overpriced their home and didn't sell it during the summer are still on the market, and then they're running into all the new sellers who are putting their home on the market for the fall market. So you got this wave of usually of increased inventory, and now we're basically scraping the bottom of where those inventory levels get. So it's definitely interesting to see.
Yeah, so I can imagine that this is not going to get better anytime soon. We're not going to be digging ourselves out of the valley starting in October. So hang in there, everybody. And the average days in the MLS, this really measures the amount of demand in the marketplace. And usually you start to see this really start to creep up. That May, June timeframe is probably the valley because that's when you have the most people shopping. And then here you are, it's all the way in September. And we have very similar to days in the MLS as we had to of June and May last year in the peak of the buying season. So what that shows is when this is really flat like this, that people have continued to shop and there's more and more demand. And so this is still an amazing time to sell a house if you're considering listing your home out there. If you're a buyer out there, hang in there, right? We're bound to see this rebound at some point, but it could be December before this happens, right? Everyone keeps bringing up the election because we're within 3 weeks of the election. And this measures a lot of consumer behavior, and it has not changed, right?
No.
It hasn't changed at all. So I always like to address that a little bit, especially in this podcast. It's October. People are looking at the election in 3 weeks, and very few people are even considering that when they're looking at buying a home right now, which, and maybe in years past, people may have considered it, but yeah, it's just a very strange year with COVID.
It is.
This one, I put in this red bar here for everybody so you could see really just where we are as far as sold numbers go. We're 26% year over year. We keep talking about record sales every month right now. It's been crazy, all of the pent up demand from COVID and everything. But just really to take a look at that, that puts us still in September. That's 3 months in a row where we've been over the high water mark for the previous years. So there's just so many sales going on right now.
Yeah. It's remarkable to see just this late season kind of start to things, and the fact that June numbers were about 60% higher than May. You don't see that disparity ever. But obviously we knew going in that that's kind of what it was going to look like, and just see this continuation of just record breaking sales activity. Even October is still super busy. It's a new system we're not used to, for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, it could take 5, 10 years in order in a normal marketplace to reach that 6,700 homes that sold in July. I mean, the market is going to have to grow exponentially to ever reach those numbers again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just crazy. We always like to talk about this too by price point. And when we were mentioning earlier how every single market out there has just a crazy amount of demand, maybe we should look at this one first. Since we've been talking about average days in the MLS, 3+ million. You said there's 18 months of inventory out there, right? But the most of those homes are only on the market for 50 days.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's 3+ million, but we're talking all the way down to 14 days at 300, 400,000 range, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's 2 weeks, right? They're under contract in 2 weeks. And when you see this all the way across the board, it just goes to show you how many people are really considering living in the metro area at all price ranges, right? It's a great time to trade up. It's a great time to own real estate. And we're seeing a lot of outside money come in. That's definitely helping.
Yeah. And
Those
it's really important too, to work with your realtor to understand where it's maybe not quite as heated in some, metro areas of the metro area, if you got some flexibility on where to live, because it can really make a difference in your sanity and help you get into a home, sooner rather than later, if you just, able to be a little more flexible as to where you want to live exactly.
Yeah, and that really is changing neighborhood by neighborhood, which we don't really get into in this podcast too much, but that's why you have your local realtor as your expert, right?
No, we have that 3-hour extended version of our podcast we do, Anthony, where we get in by neighborhood by neighborhood.
Neighborhood by neighborhood, the entire county, the entire front range.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, wouldn't that be fun? Only us would nerd out on that. We'd lose our listeners in the first 5 minutes.
So, sold, active and sold by price range too. It's, just really interesting to see, some of the changes in there. I think, the biggest one that jumps out to me is that just that $2 to $3 million price point, seeing almost a 200% increase year over year change in sold. So, we had this kind of like momentary shock to the system that occurred, when COVID happened, where it was really, really tough to get jumbo loans, and the requirements to buy, anything over about 1.5 million just became very onerous for a lot of people. And it just is remarkable to see such a recovery, across those higher price points, like we're seeing reflected in the data right now.
Yeah, it's really great to see that finally taking place. And it's kind of ratcheted its way back up there, right? So we've seen every month it start to get easier and easier to buy higher priced homes again, finally letting some of that liquidity of money take place. The one that kind of shocked me here too was that 800 to a million range. We haven't seen that kind of behavior in that range yet. So this is the first month where we've seen 100% increase year over year. I mean, if you look at that, almost 300 homes sold between 800 and a million. And that's something we haven't quite seen yet. And there's only 300 on the market. So those are turning over just as fast as anything lower, right? You could be buying 500,000, you could be buying a million. Those markets are feeling very similar right now, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, one more shameless self-promotion. I'm Anthony Meisner with Land Title, and you can always reach me by email or cell phone 303-968-9868. Happy to talk with you about the market anytime. If you want to just shoot a question over, you can grab both Jim and I at frontranchefacts@gmail.com.
And you can always reach me, Jim Merrion, realtor at Coldwell Banker in Boulder, Colorado. You can always reach me at 303-548-0243, or an email at jim@ourcoloradohomes.com.
All right, let's go see our friends in the north. Jim, you want to talk about Larimer County?
Well, it's this place up north, Anthony. No, we've got, we're going to highlight this with, El Paso County too, but, Larimer and El Paso, both of them have just, every time we talk about them, we're just seeing some massive, price increases, low inventory, just really hot markets that are outside of the normal definition of the metro area, but are both, turning into beasts in their own right. And, to see, some positive signs here, in September, looking at September this year versus last year, sold listings are up 43.4%. Median sale price has increased 14%. And, we actually are seeing more active listings in Larimer, which is kind of an opposite trend to a lot of the other areas in the state. So there's been, new construction, new builds there that have been helping, with things. So they've been expanding quite a bit. And that's certainly, I think, what's helping more than anything else. And, in townhome market, you're seeing an 18% increase in new listings. And that is where a lot of that value added, value buyer type of, inventory is coming. And, sold listings, even on the townhome condos, even though it's, kind of less desirable in the COVID era. It's still up 12%, from this time last year, and the median sale price has gone up 2.4%. So you can't go wrong by owning a property in Larimer.
Not at all. And I think the big reason that they're able to have year to date numbers at almost 8% in the single family over where they were a year ago and solds is purely because they have that active inventory on the market, right? The fact
Yeah.
that Larimer County isn't in such an inventory shortage has been very, very positive for them. You have a lot of people realizing home ownership that weren't able to, probably a little bit easier to buy up there than it is in the metro area as well. If we go over to Weld County, you're experiencing a lot of the same things up in Weld. It's a little bit out of the metro area. Prices are a little bit cheaper. Sold listings are 20% more in September than they were a year ago. That market is only about 3.2% increased year to date for solds. And a little bit of that probably has to do with that the inventory shortage, right? They're also down in inventory in single family, but it is a much cheaper place to live. So that's putting a lot more pressure on those markets. If you look at that month supply at 1.4 months, same thing that's happening up there, 46% decrease in those numbers. If you look at the average days on market, they're very similar to where they were last year. So there's not quite as much pressure, but when there's a lot of pressure, people are paying over asking price for homes. And that percentage list price received is 100.2% for single family in Weld County. So don't be mistaken. Weld County is just as competitive and very, very exciting to live in. The market's just crazy in all of Colorado right now. There's a lot of demand to come here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and so yeah, I think continue to see just some price increases in Weld, and Weld's different than a lot of the other counties because it's so diverse. It's a very large county, and it spreads across into the very rural areas. So I think the stuff you're going to see in Boulder County, that abuts Boulder County, is going to see probably a higher price increase if we really dive into it, versus say the eastern half of it. But overall, it's just rock solid.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they're really considering Southwest Weld County to becoming part of the metro area, that section is going to be seeing, more metro-like behavior than if you're way out east or you're way up north and you're neighboring, Larimer County. So it is one of those counties it's the biggest in Colorado, so it's much more diverse. We probably should just do a big deep dive into Weld County at some point. It's a really interesting marketplace right now.
Yeah, what do we got in Boulder then, Anthony?
Well, as always, Jim and I focus a lot in Boulder because that's where a lot of our business is. But Boulder County has been pretty interesting as well. We're seeing just amazing increases in sold price. Boulder was lucky that about a year ago, we were at some pretty decent inventory levels in the city. And so when you see year over year changes of active inventory only down about 33%, that's a lot less than the metro area. It's a lot less than Northern Colorado, but it has really allowed just a ton of sales to take place recently. There's a lot of demand and there was enough inventory in the marketplace to be absorbed by a lot of that. 24% increase in sales, still at an 18% increase in under contracts from a year ago. Things are looking good. We're about 2.3% year to date above where we were last year. So definitely dug themselves out of the hole. And of course, those average sales prices of 650,000 right now are shocking everybody, but it is what it is in Boulder County, right? It's a very expensive place to live.
Yeah. And, I mean, seeing a 13.5% increase of average sold price year over year is sticker shock for a lot of people that are looking to buy too.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look more at some of the rest of those market breakdowns by price point, really just stuck this in here to show the luxury market in Boulder County is just kind of gangbusters, right? 250% year over year increase in that 3+ million market. If you look at year to date changes, pretty much across the board outside of that 3 million mark that's just finally recovering, prices are through the roof, sold numbers are through the roof, inventory is just suffering as we've seen in the metro area. This is the one I wanted to focus on a little bit. At every single price point, month over month and year over year, inventory levels are just shrinking so fast, right? We saw this take place in the metro area a little earlier, but now Boulder is starting to catch up a little bit. Those average days on market, same thing. Look at those numbers for average days on market. All of them are super competitive, just like they were in the metro area, whether it's 3 million or 300,000. Though it is a great time to sell your house, it is a great time to buy and trade up. It's going to be tough as a buyer, right? We've been talking about this everywhere, but that's kind of what we're seeing by price points there. Jim, what's going on in El Paso County?
Well, El Paso, I think more than anything else is just, I mean, it's got a higher sale price increase than anywhere else in the state. And, just what's been interesting though is the fact that it's actually got a lot of inventory, relatively speaking, for new listings, but they're getting absorbed so quickly that it's just, I would imagine that you're pulling your hair out if you're a buyer in a lot of ways, because the month supply of inventory is zero point 0.7 months, which what is that
3 weeks?
15 days, 16 days, basically. So it's almost a 60% drop from this time last year. So we are seeing more new listings come on the market at about 11% increase, but they're getting absorbed just so freaking fast that it's driven the median sale price up for single family homes 18.5%, from this time last year in September. That is, I think in 2015, Boulder County had a 19.5% increase year over year in home price appreciation. So we are basically right there. This is Boulder in 2015 is what we're looking at, is happening in El Paso right now. It's nuts.
Yeah, when Jim and I were talking about this earlier, we're pretty sure those numbers were about where they are for the townhouse condo market, where they were at single family 2 years ago when we started this podcast.
Yeah.
This marketplace was so cheap and so affordable, and it's growing so fast that if you bought real estate or you're still looking to buy real estate in El Paso County, it is appreciating way faster than any other marketplace because it's still affordable. And at that point, even 2 years ago, it was by far the most affordable place to live in the whole state.
It's
In a major metropolitan area, right? I mean, you could get down into Pueblo or something maybe, but right there in the metro area, right there, it's supposed to be bigger than Metro or Denver Metro, or not Denver Metro, but by Denver County. But what, next year? Isn't that?
yeah, in 2022. So yeah, 18 months or so. And I mean, if this trend continues here, it's certainly going to happen. I think the only thing that might slow it down is just the fact that home prices are appreciating so much there that some of that value buy proposition is now becoming less and less obvious.
Absolutely. And I don't think they can build themselves out of this problem yet, right? You've seen Colorado Springs take a very forward push to build out of their inventory shortage, and they just can't keep up. And you're seeing national builders all over the place getting involved, and they just can't seem to build homes fast enough down there.
No.
Well, thank you for coming today. We appreciate you joining us for Front Range Facts. I'm Anthony Meisner with Land Title. You can always catch me on my cell phone, 303-968-9868, or on my email at ameisner@ltgc.com.
And feel free to call me at 303-548-0243. I'm Jim Merrion, realtor here in Coldwell Banker, Boulder, Colorado. And you can always shoot me an email at jim@ourcoloradohomes.com. And don't forget, you can always check out our other podcast we do on cryptocurrency and blockchain technologies in real estate with Get Real at Get Real with Blockchain. You can see that at getrealwithblockchain.com, or you can look at it at iTunes, Spotify, etc.
Thanks for joining us today.